I've made my living, Mr. Thompson, in large part as a gambler. Some days I make 20 bets. Some days I make none. There are weeks, sometimes months, in fact, when I don't make a bet at all because there simply is no play. So I wait, plan, marshal my resources. And when I finally see an opportunity, and there is a bet to make, I bet it all.
Arnold Rothstein was one of the most powerful gangsters in Boardwalk Empire. Known for his professional stature in the underworld, and of course, being a degenerate gambler, AR had a very unique presence on the show. Michael Stuhlbarg killed the role of Rothstein, and let me tell y'all something about him real quick. This guy was so damn good that the writers would come to him and ask him what would work and what wouldn't work with Rothstein's character. Stuhlbarg was chilling, cool, calm, and collected, and in this video, we're going to take a look at his story as Arnold Rothstein in Boardwalk Empire. If you enjoy content like this, give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more videos in the future. I would really appreciate it. But it's your boy Evan loud and clear. I want to thank you all for being here. Let's get into it. The first time we see AR is at the dinner of the bosses in the first episode. At this meeting, we learn a few things about him. 1. AR doesn't drink at all. He likes to stay sharp at the tables and during his daily business affairs. He's always about business. And we also see that he's somewhat of a mentor to Charlie, aka Lucky Luciano, and Meyer Lansky. He agreed to purchase 500 cases of booze from Nucky at the meeting. However, he wouldn't receive that shipment as it was hijacked by Jimmy and Al Capone. Later in the same episode, Big Jim Colosimo was executed by a guy named Frankie Yale. Frankie was hired by Johnny Torrio. Now, ironically, he was still out in Chicago to greet Al Capone when he came back with Rothstein's stolen shipment, and that's important. When Frankie gets back to New York, he's picked up by Luciano and brought to Rothstein. AR tells him the story about how he made a guy choke to death on a cue ball doing a trick, and the moral of the story is,
don't need a cue ball.
The moral of this story is that if I'd cause a stranger to choke to death for my own amusement, what do you think I'll do to you if you don't tell me who ordered you to kill Colosimo?
Now with that being said, Frankie spilled the beans about Colosimo's death, but more importantly, he tells AR that Capone arrived with the shipment that was supposed to go to him. So AR naturally assumed that Nucky double-crossed him, and when Nucky finally answered his phone call, AR had the chance to tell him. AR and Nucky go back and forth for a little bit, and then Arnold tells Nucky that he owes him $100,000 for selling his booze to Chicago.
It's bad enough you sold my load to Chicago. My sister-in-law's nephew was one of those drivers.
I didn't sell your load to anyone, and I don't care if your mother was one of the drivers.
Is this the way you do business?
You want to see how I do business? Show your face again in Atlantic City.
After that, the war between Nucky Thompson and AR was on. AR instructed Lucky Luciano to head to Atlantic City to find Jimmy, but not just to find him, make him talk, and then kill him. Luciano ended up finding Jimmy's mother, Jillian, instead. Now, AR said he has a crystal ball, and I believe that that is very true. He was great at predicting what was going to happen, and it was almost as if he predicted Charlie was going to start sleeping with Jillian. I think after that call, Lucky realized he was starting to forget about the main objective. That's when Lucky recruited the D'Alessio brothers, who had already been knocking off Nucky's ward bosses. Now, AR actually got two of the brothers and Mickey Doyle to sign life insurance policies, and that's important, but we'll talk about that later. While AR was fighting his war in Atlantic City against Nucky Thompson, he was also fighting a war in Chicago against the law. He was about to be indicted for fixing the World Series. His lawyer advised him to think of a friend in Chicago who'd be willing to do him a favor. Thing is, AR didn't have many friends in Chicago, but Nucky did. Nucky and Rothstein made a deal to end the war, and Rothstein ended up not being indicted. In Season 2, Jimmy Darmody and Nucky Thompson grow apart. This made Jimmy offer to sell booze to AR. AR turned down his offer, but he possibly says one of the craziest lines in this series.
Do you have kids, Mr. Rothstein?
No. But I'm told they often say unexpected and amusing things.
Now, this scene also displays Rothstein's loyalty. If he's in a partnership with you, he won't betray you, regardless of the past. He was just in a war with Nucky Thompson, but now being in the truce with Nucky, he won't buy booze from Jimmy. Now, the relationship between Arnold Rothstein and Joe Masseria was sensitive, to say the least. AR was kinda always making nice with Masseria. He knew that Joe didn't necessarily trust him, and Masseria didn't like the fact that AR was in cahoots with Meyer Lansky, and especially Lucky Luciano. AR and Masseria found out that Lucky and Meyer were operating a card game on turf that Masseria thought was his. AR had Lucky and Meyer agree to give Masseria 10% of the game going forward. AR bumped heads with Meyer and Lucky about having to deal with Joe all the time, but AR knew that Masseria was better as an ally than an enemy.
We already pay half the take on that game to you.
Yes. And now you boys know why.
Now, AR and Nucky had a very touchy relationship as well, but they were a lot more similar than not, in my opinion. Oftentimes in Season 2, AR would provide Nucky with advice. Nucky fired his lawyer, needed a new one. AR advised him to use Lawyer Fallon. That decision proved to be a good one, as Nucky ended up getting off. Nucky was under attack in Season 2. The Darmodys were trying to take over Atlantic City, but Nucky was under indictment and was being watched by the feds. So Nucky couldn't retaliate, and his money was tied up in a land deal, so he had no money for bribes. AR advised him to do nothing, as he had no move. Rothstein told Nucky to be patient, and that proved to be another good decision, as the Darmodys pretty much destroyed themselves. And if you want to hear that story in full, go watch the video I made about the Darmodys when you're done watching this. But even when Nucky was getting his booze seized by the Coast Guard, he called on AR, and Arnold hooked up the route through Philly so Nucky could keep operating. AR was very resourceful and was definitely better to have as a friend than an enemy. AR knew that information was just as valuable as anything else at that time. He prided himself on knowing things before other people knew them, or that other people didn't even know at all. There was a scene in the stables where Arnold asked Lansky and Luciano if they knew who took a shot at Nucky. Obviously, they said they had no idea, but we all knew that AR knew that they had something to do with it, and I just want to take y'all back to the beginning of that scene real quick.
Unorthodox, yes, but there's nothing illegal about it.
Said the spider to the fly.
Now, in that sequence, that would make Rothstein the spider and the other man the fly. Now, how do spiders catch their food, y'all? They spin the web and they patiently wait for their prey to fall into the trap. I think that's very similar to how Rothstein operates in the underworld, and while he's gambling as well. Now, we don't see this introduction, but sometime between seasons 2 and 3, Arnold Rothstein introduces Nucky Thompson to Gyp Rossetti. We can gather that Nucky was providing Gyp with booze, but during the classic scene where Rossetti roasts everybody, Nucky informs everyone that from now on, he'll only be selling to one buyer.
Effective immediately, I'll be exporting exclusively from Atlantic City to Mr. Rothstein. If you'd like, you can buy directly from him.
At a 50% markup.
Well, you could always buy from Brooklyn.
Gyp didn't like that too much, to say the least, and the first shipment Nucky tried sending to Rothstein, Gyp hijacked it. Now, this next conversation between AR and Nucky is very important and is very eye-opening because it's the first time we see AR break that cool, calm, and demeaning character that he's been holding on to the entire show. We see AR visibly upset for the first time, and Nucky realizes it as well. Now, instead of handling business, Nucky had been running around with Billy Kent for most of Season 3, and AR really exposed him for that. There were a few moments in the scene where the doors were closed and we couldn't hear exactly what they were saying to each other, but during these moments, a deal was made between AR and Nucky. AR was going to have Rossetti killed. Of course, the hit failed, and Jip actually almost got killed by Masseria as well, but he told Joe that he would kill Nucky, Rothstein, Luciano, Lansky, and anybody else that wasn't on their side. Masseria gave Jip his blessing and provided him with a good amount of muscle. Nucky was on the run, and AR ended up providing Nucky with an opportunity to get the upper hand. Now, how this opportunity came about is crazy. Nucky called a big meeting with Rothstein, Waxy Gordon, and a bunch of other people from New York. Nucky attempted to get them to go to war against Masseria with him, but they all declined, including Rothstein. So Nucky needed another way to kill Masseria, or at least get him to pull his muscle from Jip. Luciano and Lansky had a heroin business on the side, which AR knew about, of course. They told AR about a large amount of heroin they wanted to buy, with AR's help. But AR said they shouldn't because of the war brewing between Nucky and Masseria. Luciano ignored AR and got the money fronted to him by Masseria. So now he needed to sell the drugs to pay Masseria, and he ended up selling heroin to a couple of cops who arrested him. Thing is, they weren't actually cops. They were associates of guess who? Arnold Rothstein. So basically, Arnold Rothstein sent out two guys to buy drugs from Lucky, impersonate officers, then take the drugs back to Rothstein. There goes Rothstein being the spider, laying the trap. Now what AR did with the drugs is what got Nucky off the hook with Masseria. Since AR was now in supply of the heroin that Luciano bought with Masseria's money, he made a deal with Masseria, and they became partners in the heroin trade. In exchange, Masseria pulled his muscle from Jip, and Nucky eventually regained control of AC. Now, this whole exchange was, unfortunately, the end of Rothstein and Luciano's relationship as we knew it. AR thought he had a civilizing effect on Charlie, but unfortunately, he realized that he had taught Charlie everything Charlie was willing to learn. Now, AR didn't help Nucky out of the kindness of his heart. I believe he requested 99% of a huge distillery Nucky was in charge of operating. Funny thing is, it was Mickey Doyle who told him about it, but we'll talk about that in a second. Now, season 4 starts off with a meeting between Nucky, Masseria, and Rothstein. Also in attendance are Meyer, Lucky, Eli, and Tonino. Now, Nucky was supposed to give Rothstein 99% of the distillery, but Nucky informed Andrew Mellon, who was the owner of the distillery, that someone he doesn't know is taking it over. So Mellon shut the entire operation down, leaving Rothstein with nothing. Nucky was supposed to let Masseria's men leave AC, but he arranged for them to be ambushed. Nucky ended off paying Masseria and Rothstein, and all was forgiven. Nucky ended up getting involved in Florida real estate. He wanted to use the land to import whiskey into Florida and the Bahamas, and to export rum back to AC and New York. He needed a partner with a lot of money and a level head, and who better else than AR, right? Well, Nucky proposed a deal to AR, and AR agreed to partner with him with one condition. AR required that Nucky play cards with him.
I find you don't really know a man until you play cards with him.
Don't we know each other, Arnold?
One would have thought so.
Now, unfortunately for AR, this is where he would show Nucky that he was not the level-headed partner that Nucky would require. AR was looking to show Nucky a thing or two during a game of poker, but all he did was show Nucky his weakness. I mean, let's be real, y'all. AR was a sore loser, and he showed Nucky that he gets very flustered when things don't go his way. And what Nucky says to Meyer after the game is very true.
He's a great man, AR, but he doesn't like to lose.
Nobody likes to, but we all have to learn how.
Meyer and Nucky end up partnering together, leaving AR out of the loop. In season 4, Margaret's now a secretary in an investment company. The company persuades its clients to invest in worthless properties. One day, her boss called her into the office, and she was suddenly faced with Arnold Rothstein, who was using the alias Abe Redstone. And as for Margaret, she really looked like she just seen a ghost. Rothstein invests money into the property her company was pushing, and he left her $100. They later spoke on the phone and agreed to an arrangement and to keep each other's identities a secret. Now, I really started to wonder why AR was going down this route, as it was very unlike him. There's a scene where he had a conversation with his bodyguard, Pete, and in this conversation, Rothstein indicates that he thinks his luck is running out.
First time I ever played craps, I won $32. I was 9 years old.
Lucky little boy.
Yes. Or at least I used to think so.
AR and Nucky's next meeting confirms this. AR tells Nucky he was the victim of a broker who we can assume is Margaret's boss. Now, y'all remember AR having two of the D'Alessio brothers and Mickey Doyle sign life insurance policies? Well, AR tried to sell Mickey's policy to Nucky so he could become the beneficiary, which amused Nucky in a way. But nonetheless, he ended up buying the policy from AR for $100,000. AR goes to Margaret's job to see her, and we finally find out what's really been going on. Margaret's bosses have been purposely driving down the stock on something called Anaconda Realty, in which Rothstein was invested in. AR told Margaret to think about letting Rothstein know when her boss was going to buy back the stock. AR met up with Margaret again, and she advised AR to buy shares as soon as possible, and in return, Margaret was to receive free housing for herself and her children for 5 years. And when it comes to Arnold Rothstein's story in Boardwalk Empire, y'all, it unfortunately ends there. And I know what y'all thinking. As fans of the show, we would have loved to have seen an on-screen death for AR at the very least, but the show was canceled after season 5, so they pretty much rushed the last half of season 4 and completely rushed season 5 in my opinion, but I plan on making a video about the events occurring in the 7-year time gap between seasons 4 and 5, but as for this video, I unfortunately gotta end it. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more of my videos in the future. But it's your boy Evan loud and clear. I'm out of here.